Good evening, everyone.
Kavod Harav, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank you. Okay. Okay. So what I realized after we finished last time, that there was one halakha we left out. So I'm going to go back and do that halakha, and then we'll continue to the next topic. God forbid we should leave out something. So let's make sure we got everything. Actually, it's an important halakha, and interesting also. Okay. All right, so it says here the Bit Yosef. It says in the first parak of Berachot, Hey Amud Bet, Kol hanoten mitato ben tzafon ledarom havi an led banim zcharim. So he says, if you put your bed right facing north and south, so you're going to have male children, right? We already talked about why it's good to have male children, right? I don't want to get into that again. Not going to repeat that, right? But refer to the older lecture, right, from last week, if you want to know about that. So anyway, so we see from there that the proper thing to do is to have your bed facing north and south. So he brings us from a pasuk also in Tehillim, right? Shenema Yud Zayin Yudalet Utzfoncha Temale. This pasuk there in Tehillim. Uperesh Rashi explains Ben Tzafon Darom that the bed should be north and south. Roshal Magrotia Zel Tzafon Bezel Darom. So he says that means like the head and the foot of the bed, right? Should be like that, north and south. ונראה בעיניי שהשכינה ממזרח ומערב לפיכך נכון להסב דרך תשמישו לרוחות האחרות. So says Rashi, what's the reason why? It brings a reason why it should be north and south. So he says because the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is in the east, right? Or in the west. Therefore, he says, right, it's not proper to have your bed facing that way. Why is that? Because, you're doing, hanky-panky there in the bed, right? So, you don't want to have, right, you don't want to be doing that towards the Shekhinah. That's what he's saying. Okay, interesting, right? Interesting idea. So, yeah. That's the Rashi. So he says, Tosfot, what does he say? So he says, all say the same thing, he says, right? That we're talking about when you're sleeping with your wife. In other words, if you're single, you can do what you want, right? We don't care. But if you're sleeping with your wife, you're having children, you're having intercourse in the bed, right? So there, you got to watch out, because as we said, the Shekhinah is east and west. So you don't want to be doing it in that direction. So it says that will be like a disgraceful thing, not respectful, disrespectful. ורבנו יונה כתב, says רבנו יונה, שאתה מפני שהמנורה הייתה בדרום והשולחן בצפון. So he says something else, right? Different reason he gives over here. So he says in the temple, right? The menorah was in the south, And the table, right, the Shulchan was in the north. Okay, no, good. So look what he says, right? The Shulchan Keneged Osher, right? So what does the table represent over there in the temple? It represents wealth. Why is that? Because that corresponds to the king, right? To the Malchut, the kingdom, which is the wealth, Because if you don't have money, right, so you can't become a president, right? And even today, it's the same thing, right? If you don't have a good cash supply, you have no chance of getting elected or getting appointed anywhere, right? To be anywhere, So yeah, that's the whole thing, right? So it's all about money, when you want to be king or president, whatever. So, when the menorah can get the Torah, and the menorah, he says, corresponds to the Torah. So, so that means that before he's going to have relations with his wife, so he says you should pray for his sons that they should be successful in Torah, and his children, right? They should be good learners, good Torah learners. Okay. Well, and also they should have wealth as well, right? Why? They shouldn't have to, need, right? They shouldn't need any charity, right? Begging going around the doors, begging, right? So we don't want that, right? Therefore, those are the two things that we need, for somebody who's having children. That they should be learning Torah and also, right, have wealth, to support themselves and not be reliant on others. Okay, there you go. So that's the story there. So that is the Bet Yosef. Yeah. So now I have to warn you about something here. Right? Be warned, beware, right? What am I warning you about? In the Zohar Kadosh, right? In the Zohar, it says just the opposite. That the bed should be east and west. So it is a machloket between the Talmud and the Zohar when it comes to this issue. And so the Zohar doesn't mind, that you should be having your bed facing the Shekhinah. He has no problem with that. Why is that? Because according to the Kabbalah, right, the whole union between husband and wife is Shekhinah. It's holiness, It's a holy thing. So there's nothing to be ashamed of, The Shekhinah doesn't mind that you're having relations with your wife because there's the opposite, right? On the contrary, he's there with you, the Shekhinah is there with you when you're with your wife. That's the whole point. It's a holy thing. It's a holy endeavor. So, that's the thing, the difference between us and the goyim, That's one of the big differences. We don't consider, sex to be something dirty, or, something shameful. It's a mitzvah, So we have nothing to be ashamed about. We have nothing to be scared of, Yes, it's true. We don't want to be doing it in front of the people, people watching us. That's for sure. It's because of modesty. But the Shekhinah, right? You can't be modest with the Shekhinah. They know what you're doing, right? So there's nothing to be modest about there. But anyway, the point is, right, that the Zohar says east and west, so there's no issue there. The Ramban talks about this, by the way. How having relations with your wife is a very holy thing. It's very holy. The union between man and wife, when they get together and become one, is a very holy institution.
Yeah. So you would have daughters if you're facing the direction that the Zohar says?
Well, the whole thing is it's a machloket, right?
So who do we rule in favor?
Yeah, who do we go like, right? Who do we go like? That's the question, right? So the truth is, in general, we when there's a machloket between the Talmud and the Zohar, we go like the Talmud. This is the general rule, There are exceptions also. There are many exceptions to that as well. But here, I've seen that many of the authorities, later authorities, they say, you know what, since we have, what to rely on both ways, So you can do whichever way you want. You want to do like the Talmud, right? Go like that. You want to do like the Zohar, go like that. Whatever makes you happy, right? If you're a Zohar guy, go with that, right? If you're a Talmud guy, right, go with that. Yeah, it's all good, right? So we're gonna see in the Shulchan Aruch, right, what they say about that. How they. But that's what I remember hearing from many rabbis, several rabbis. They said, since it's machloket, you can do whatever you want. It's all good. Right? And by the way, that's a good thing for us. You know why? Because right, we live in apartments and all kinds of things like this, houses and here and there. So the thing is, we can't always put the bed in that direction, that the Talmud wants, So sometimes we have to do like the Zohar because it just doesn't fit like that. So it's just a matter of practicality sometimes. So it's good that we have what to rely on in both ways. This way, we're not losing out, right? Whatever it is, depending on how they built your house or your apartment, right? What can you do? That's the way it goes. Okay. So let's go to the Shulchan Aruch and see what the bottom line is, right? Let's see it. Yeah, so said Shulchan Aruch, Mitash Yashen ba'im ishto, as we said, right? If you're sleeping on a bed with your wife, right? If you're single, as we said, we don't really care about this so much. It's all good. So as we said, right, it has to be north and south, according to the Talmud. That's what he brings over here. So let's look at the Mishnah Berurah, right? See what he says about this. Interesting, huh? Okay. Right, so he refers you to a different Mishnah Berurah, right, which is in chapter 3. Sif Vav, interesting. Okay. He doesn't explain it over here. He says, look over there. So actually, we can look there, but yeah, we can do all kinds of things. We can do it. Okay, so I'm gonna put up a different screen, and we're gonna take a look, at some of the poskim, what they say about this. If my memory is not failing me, right, let's make sure I got it right, so we don't make any mistakes. Okay. So now we're gonna go to the other screen. See what we can find. Okay. Sometimes it gets jammed when I switch screens. Okay, here we go. It's a miracle. We got the screen. It's a total miracle. Okay, let's take a look over there where he said chapter 3. We already did chapter 3, right? In the beginning when we started. Let's see what we got there. So here we go. Chapter 3, Gimel, Mishnah Berurah, Vav. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Uh, hmm. I don't see him talking about this here, the Mishnah Berurah. It must be a misquote. The site must be wrong. All right. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's het. I think I just found it. I think. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So he just explains it a little bit. Not really much here. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go jump over to Yalkut Yosef, and we'll see what he has to say about this. Let's see. Let's go to Yalkut Yosef. Laws of tzniut, modesty. Ah, wow. Yeah. Okay. See what we can find. It doesn't talk about it. Okay. All right. I don't know if he covers this. There are other books that do, but I don't have time now to get into it. It's going to take us too long. But that's my recollection, that you can do either way. Okay. If I had my other program plugged in, I would go over there, but it's not plugged in. It's going to take a time. So I'm not going to take too much of your time. I'll check it out and let you know, just to be on the safe side. Okay, so we'll go to the next topic. Right. So I was thinking, maybe we should do laws of blessings, brachot. Are you interested in that, you guys?
Yes.
Blessings. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So, they say, when you bless Hashem, Hashem blesses you. So it's all blessing there. Okay. Right away, when you bless him, he blesses you. That's what it says in the Zohar. There's a lot to learn over there in blessings. Lots of stuff there. And it's not very well known to people. A lot of people don't know about these things. So it's why it's good to really clarify these things, Make sure we got the blessings down. Okay, so here we go. We'll get started. We also had a request for doing Shabbat, So maybe, we'll get to that because, we're going on the sequence, right? So after blessings, it's like Shabbat, whatever. So
Rabbi, I do have a question. The Elijah, the prophet, the blessing, the prayer, is it only said on Shabbat or or can we say it daily?
Which prayer are you talking about?
Okay, hold on one second. Let me just get my
Okay, no, take your time, no rush.
Siddur. Okay, a second. Elijah's introduction. That's in the Sephardic Siddur.
Patach Eliyahu, that's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Patach Eliyahu, yeah. Patach Eliyahu is basically a piece of a section from the Zohar. That's what it is, you know?
And is it read daily or just
This is, this is done, by the Sfardim in the synagogue, before the prayer, prayers like Mincha or Shachrit, they do Patach Eliyahu. It's not necessary, especially for women. Not necessary at all. But it's really, the truth is, in my rabbi's synagogue, Maran, we never read Patach Eliyahu over there. Even in the shul, we never read.
but it's
You know
not
why that is?
prohibited.
The reason why they do it is because they want to say Kaddish, That's the whole thing, right?
Oh, okay.
So you can't say Kaddish really at home anyway. So what's the point, Like what, if you want to read Zohar, just read Zohar, like why read the same passage every day? Like what's repeating it every day all your life, until 120 years ago. Might as well just read the Zohar, and go on, like read something else every day.
Okay.
What's the point,
But it is not prohibited to read it daily.
No, not prohibited. If you want to read it, you can read it. But really, if you like to read Zohar, might as well start from beginning, Bereshit, and go on from there.
Thank you.
But the truth is, that what do you call it? My Rabbi Maran Shalom, he told us that you're not allowed to translate the Zohar, into English, whatever, Spanish, whatever it is, right? So therefore, really, it's probably better not to use any Zohar translations.
It's not translated in this Siddur, so
Yeah.
you go line by line and
Yeah, the truth is, they say that the Zohar is so holy that even if you don't understand what you're reading, it still helps your neshama. That's how holy it is. It still elevates the soul, So there is, anyway, right, an inyan to read the Zohar, even if you don't understand one word. But that you can do, as I said, you can do Zohar every day if you want to, let's say, read every day Zohar. There is a book called Chokle Israel. You ever hear about this book?
no.
Chokle Israel is like a learning portion every day. The Arizal used to learn this book. A lot of people learn it. It's a very famous. So it gives you, like, in the Chokle Israel, like a piece of Torah to learn from all the sections of the Torah, whether it's Talmud, whether it's right Halacha, Rambam, Shulchan Aruch, right? Oh, and it also has a Zohar there every day. So if you want to do, that would be like more appropriate, to do like Chokle Israel.
Okay, thank you.
That book, I'm not sure if they have it translated yet, but whatever. I'm not sure. I haven't checked that. But it's considered to be like a big thing, like a lot of big people learn Chokle Israel.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so that's better. I mean, whatever, it's all good, It's all good, it's all Torah, Baruch Hashem. So okay, that's the story there. So let's go to, as we said, right, we're going to blessings now. Blessings. This one is Hamutzi. Okay, this is interesting. Yeah, we can do that. Let's see. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, I guess we can do that. But before that, there's also Netilat Yadayim, the laws of washing hands. Are you guys interested in doing that? Netilat Yadayim?
Didn't we study that at the beginning of the laws of prayer?
We only did that, for the bathroom, but now we're talking about for the meals.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, it is okay.
Okay, so we'll start with that, Netilat Yadayim. And then we'll go to the blessings, right after that. So, all right, here we go. It's all good. Right, so he starts out here with something interesting, by the way, which every Jew really should know about this. The Talmud talks about this also. So the Torah says like this, right? When the fourth hour of the day comes, right? You should already like to have a meal, have a meal, eat something, whatever. Because Rapapa says in Talmud, Sha'ah Dalid Zaman Seudah. So he says, right, the fourth hour is the time for the Seudah, for the meal. L'chol hu, right, for everybody, ve'im hu Tamid Chacham. But if he's a Tamid Chacham, right, Torah scholar, right, ve'osek b'limudo, and he's, busy with his learning, Yamtin ad Sha'ah Shishit. So he can wait until the sixth hour, He's busy, this guy. So regular people, good to eat, by the fourth hour. And rabbis, who are learning all day, right? So sixth hour, right? Which is around 12 o'clock, sixth hour. Right, and the fourth hour is around the 10-ish, right? Around 10, something like that. Okay, so anyway, right, says here, ימתין עד שעה שלישית, ודניה שישית מאכל תלמיד חכמים, ומשם ואילך לא יאחר דהבה כזורק אבן לחמת, right? So he says that, but if you wait longer than that, right, you don't eat until after midday, that's already not gonna, it doesn't help you very much anymore, In other words, the food doesn't really give you the proper nourishment anymore. After the sixth hour, so midday, which is about, let's say, around in my area, it's about 1 o'clock, in the afternoon. In your area, whatever, check your local calendar there, whatever it is, right? Midday, chatzot. So, so a person, even a Talmid Chacham should eat before chatzot something, so it says, right? So that only applies when he didn't, taste anything in the morning. But if he did taste something in the morning, then you can wait longer, So in other words, we're talking about that, like he didn't taste anything. He fasted, right through, after midday, right? So there, the food doesn't really benefit him so much anymore. It's not really so nourishing, right? Not so healthy. So that's the story, right? So that's the end of the chapter for the tour. It's a small chapter, but it's important to know this. Let's go to Bet Yosef, and I'm sure he'll explain more things about this because there are some sources in the Talmud about this thing. So let's go to Bet Yosef. This is Kuf Nun Zayin. Okay. Right. So says Bet Yosef over here, he brings a source for this, right? Where does it talk about this? Pirkat Kama de Psachim. First Perk of Psachim, Yud Bet Amud Bet, right? And then we said, right, that for the Chacham, Talmid Chacham, right, it's going to be 6th hour. What is that? Now Yitanami Perk Kama de Shabbat. So it's the first Perk of Shabbat, right? Yud Amud Aleph, that's where it is. These are the sources. Okay. So that's the story there. Okay, so there's not much here really. Besides that, that seems to be it. Okay, let's go to Shulchan Aruch, and we're done with this chapter very, very quick. Very quick. Okay, so says Shulchan Aruch, כשיגיע שעה רביעית יקבע סעודתו, right? When the time comes, right, the 4th hour, he should already, sit down and eat a meal. His breakfast, right? ואם הוא תלמיד חכם, if he's תלמיד חכם, as we said, ועוסק בלימודו, therefore he's busy with learning, ימתין עד שעה ו', he can wait until the 6th hour, no problem. ולא יאחר יותר מדהווה, but not more than that, he says. דהווה כזורק אבן לחמת, right? It's like, doesn't have the nourishment anymore. The proper nourishment there. ואם לא טעם מידי בצפרא, right? So but that's only if he didn't taste anything in the morning, right? But if he did, right? So then he's okay, So let's say, he had a cup of coffee, right, in the morning, or some breakfast bar, some, right, whatever it is, right? Something like that. And so he's good, he can wait longer if he wants, if he has the energy to do that. Right, the Talmid Chacham, whatever, right? He wants to wait and have like a late, brunch, whatever, right? Something like that. Whatever it is, it's all good. Okay, so yeah. That's the story there. But I have to tell you, that this is talking about, a person that already learned Torah in the morning, he had some learning done. And then he's supposed to go and eat, his meal. That's what it talks about before that. So why do I tell you that? Because the truth is, that there's something called Pat Shachrit. Right? So it says in Shulchan Aruch that, even before you learn, you should have like a little bread, little, something like that, right? Like just a little kazait, whatever, egg size, olive size, because that is a good thing for the health. It prevents diseases and, gives you good health, all kinds of good things, So therefore, the proper thing to do, if a person can, it's not an obligation really, but if he has time or whatever, he has the resources, right? And he has, something to take a little bite of bread or something. So, if he doesn't have bread, also you can use mezonot, cake, whatever, right? Well, it's all the same, Right? Some borekas, whatever, right? It's all good. So yeah, you can have that. And so that's considered to be a very healthy thing, very conducive to health and also preventing, diseases. That's what it says in the Talmud. So a person should know that, I think I posted about this recently. Yeah, I did, yeah. That, I posted from a Talmud that it prevents, like, it says over there, like 80 diseases, a person who eats a little bread in the morning. So recommended to do that, if you can, Right, so that's a good thing. As we said, right, mezonot is also good. It's like bread, mezonot is like bread. So it's all good. And okay, fantastic. So we got that. So we'll go to the next chapter. Kuf Nun Chet. Let's see what he's got here. Now we're going into the meal, right? The laws of the meal. Seudah, netilat yadayim, first washing your hands. Right, so it says the Torah like this, right? Ukesheba lechol, the person comes to eat, right? When he comes to eat, itol yadav kodem. First of all, he's got to wash his hands. Netilat yadayim. Fafilu lechulin, right? Even if you're eating mundane foods, right? Not eating holy stuff, right? Velav davka kesheochel pat. So it's not only when he eats bread, ela lechol davar asher tibulo b'mashkeh. Even something which is like dipped into liquids. In other words, that's the way to eat it like that. Also, it also requires netilat yadayim. But he says if he does it for fruit, he's considered to be like conceited, Why is that? Because it's not necessary, Like, don't wash your hands when it's not necessary, Like you're some kind of a holy angel, whatever. It's not proper to do that. Unless you your hands are not clean, right? I'm not talking about that. But if you don't need to wash hands, the rabbis didn't decree. So why are you washing your hands for? What, do you want to be some kind of some kind of angel? What are you interested in being? It's not good to be like that, because it's like you're being haughty, arrogant, conceited, all those bad things, right? So not a good thing. So he says, right, you have to be very careful when it comes to netilat yadayim. When you're eating meals, as we said, right? Because if you don't, right, you're liable for nidui, excommunication, right? So a person doesn't wash his hands, before he eats meals, excommunication. There's also other things which are said, about this. It causes poverty, if he doesn't wash his hands. And in the Zohar, it says like he's liable to death, I just posted about that recently. So, the sages are very stringent about this, that before the meal, you got to wash your hands. As we said, that's only if you're eating bread, right? Or you're eating something which is the way to dip it into some liquid, But if it's not like that, not necessary. What about, let me ask you a question now, right? If we're on this topic already. So a lot of people have this mistake, by the way, What about if the fruit is wet, like, you washed it under the sink, right? Since it's wet, do you have to wash your hands? So the answer is no, because it's not the way to dip these things into liquids, for eating purposes. So therefore, even if the fruit is wet, you don't have to wash your hands. It's a common misconception that people have, right? So if you see somebody doing that, tell them it's not necessary. Right? Okay.
Rabbi, could you repeat that? So if you're not eating bread, it's not necessary to do netilat
Right.
yadayim?
Either you're not eating bread or something which is the way to dip it into a liquid, something like that, right? That's the way to eat it like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So otherwise, it's not necessary unless your hands are dirty, right? If your hands are dirty, you have to wash your hands anyway. I'm not talking about that. But if your hands are clean, everything is good, right? You didn't touch, your body, right, or whatever, your private parts, or you didn't scratch your head. So then there's no reason to wash your hands for, to have some fruit, or some vegetable, or to have a salad, or to have, what do you call it, to have some cake, you don't have to wash your hands for that. Mezonot. Okay, that's the story, right? So yeah. It says את מי נידו את רבי אליעזר בן הנדל שזלזל בנטילת ידיים וכל המזלזל בנטילת ידיים בא לידי עניות, right? So he says this, right? That there was one rabbi that was ignoring doing netilat yadayim, and they excommunicated him. Okay, that's one thing, right? And then it says, there's a story about this in the Talmud also with Rabbi Akiva. I'll tell you the story. It's a very interesting story. So it says like this. So it says, we said, right, whoever doesn't do netilat yadayim, he comes to poverty, right? It brings him to poverty. Rabbi Zrika, Rabbi Elazar, כל המזלזל מנטילת ידיים נעקר מן העולם. Look what he says, right? Incredible. Like the Zohar. He says, right, whoever doesn't do netilat yadayim, he's uprooted from the world. So it means he's going to die, right? That's what it means. Like the Zohar. ומי הוא במחנה ההולכים למלחמה פטורים מנטילת ידיים. Look what he says, right? But if you're going out to war, he says you're absolved. So if you're going to Gaza, to fight against those animals, right? Those Nazis, you don't have to do netilat yadayim. Okay, good to know. Right, Rishonim, right? That's what we're talking about before the meal. There's also water that they have to do after the meal. So it says, even though the minimum, water you need for this mitzvah is a revi'it, right? Which is 3 ounces. But he says you should do more, use like a bigger cup, right? Because right, it gives you, it's a segula for wealth, it's a good thing for wealth. Conducive. It's conducive for wealth. Right? So that's what this rabbi says. I use a lot of water for netilat yadayim, and they give me lots of blessing. He blesses netilat yadayim. Even though it's only from the rabbis, this mitzvah, not from the Torah. That they required you to do, right, washing your hands even for mundane foods, because right, it resembles teruma. Perush shelo yavo le'achol teruma b'lo netilat yadayim. So you shouldn't come to eat teruma without washing your hands. Ustam yadayim sheniyot the teruma. And it says the hands are usually, right, 2nd degree of impurity. Upostot teruma, and they disqualified teruma. Therefore, the rabbis decreed, right, even to wash your hands for mundane foods. Even though you don't really need it, because the chulin, right, the mundane foods, do not accept impurity. Do not, right. Okay, so let's see about Yosef, right? We read some good stuff there.
What are the mundane foods?
All the stuff that we eat, that's called mundane. You know what I mean?
You mean the blessings that require like shakol?
Not holy food. It's not holy food.
Okay, thank you.
Mundane. It doesn't have any holiness to it. That's what it means. Okay, very good. So yeah, so let's see the what else we got here. With Yosef. It's like holy food, the things you eat in the temple, the sacrifices and truma, those are holy. Right? So when you come to wash your hands, right? So when you come to eat, you have to wash your hands even for mundane foods, as we said. So it's going to be explained, right? Because of the truma, they made this decree. Katava Agur, says the Agur, B'Shem Mashibur Leket, name of this rabbi. So it says if he washed his hands, but he didn't intend to eat at that time, right? And then he changed his mind. Then he wants to, now all of a sudden he wants to eat a meal. He has to wash his hands again, he says. Interesting, right? So even though you just wash your hands now, but since you didn't do it for the sake of the meal, he says you have to do it again. That's what he says, this rabbi. The Agur, the name of the Shiboli Aleket. Okay. Goes on, right? Katuv Aruchot Chaim, says in Aruchot Chaim, Ma'im Rishonim Mitzvah Achronim Chova. So he says the first water, right, you eat before the meal is a mitzvah, and the last water is obligation. L'maynaf kamina. What does that mean? What is the practical difference? Lebatule anach mikameh hanach. That means that one, right, is nullified in front of the other, in the place of the other. Sheim achal achshav beno ma'im. So what does that mean? If he ate now, it doesn't have any water. Achronim, it doesn't have any final water. Ma'im achronim. And he has to eat another meal. ביום, in that day, כגון 3 סעודות, like for instance 3 meals, בשבת on the Shabbat, מבטל הסעודה האחרת, so he's going to nullify the second, so going to cancel that other סעודה, the meal, ונוטל ידיו לברכת המזון. He's going to eat, right, and wash his hands now for ברכת המזון. מפני שכבר נתחייב בברכה, so because he's already obligated to do that, the blessing. ואם יש לו שמן ערב או יין, מנקה בו ידיו ומברך על כנה. So he says, but if he has, let's say some, right, good oil, fragrant oil, or he has some wine, you can use that also, to wash his hands, so the mayim achorim. So let me just explain to you what he's saying here, right? That there's 2 washings that we do during the meal, there's also a third one, but we're going to get to that, but there's 2 main ones, right? The crucial ones. The first one is the one we wash before we eat bread, as we said. But there's also mayim achorim, right? That's the one that we do after we finish a meal. So the Talmud says that the one we do after is even more important than the one before. Just give me a second, I'm sorry. Hello? Yeah.
Sorry.
How are you? No problem. I'm going to call you back in a few minutes, okay? If you don't mind. God bless. Thank you. Okay. So, as we said, right? Yeah. So, as we said, right, that there's the mayim achorim, right. So that's more important. So therefore, he says, right, what does that mean? That what do I really care? Which one is more important? They're both obligation. So the practical difference is that if you have only a limited amount of water, right, you don't have enough water for both. So what does that mean? Let's say you already had a meal, you had one meal, right, and now you need to do birkat hamazon. So you got to wash your hands before birkat hamazon. So, but you don't have water for the next meal, to wash for the next meal. So he says, right, you should use the water for this meal, for the birkat hamazon, and then skip the next meal, right? Go on a diet, right? Don't eat the next meal, right? Skip it. Why? Because you don't have any water to wash for that. And so that's what he says, So yeah. So you see from there, right, that the mayim achorim is more important than the mayim rishonim, right, which is the final thing before we say birkat hamazon. Okay, that's the point he's trying to make over here. But he says, right, that if you don't have water to make mayim achorim, after the meal, you can use also, like oil or wine for that, so you can use that. For us, like, water is better, because it's cheaper, but sometimes in those days, they didn't have water, so they had to use something else, some other liquid, so they could use that. That's what he means to say. Okay, good. Very nice. So now he brings the Rambam here. Katav Rambam, says the Rambam, right? Peg Vav Minchut Berachot, laws of blessings. So says the Rambam, right? Even though your hands are not dirty, and also there's no impurity there, as far as you know, you still have to wash your hands for the meal, right? No matter what. You have to wash both your hands for the meal, even if your hands are not dirty. כתב עוד שם, כל האוכל הפת שמברכים עליו המוציא, so he says also there that that if a person eats bread, right, that requires, hamotzi, the blessing hamotzi, צריך נטילת ידיים תחילה בסוף. You have to wash your hands before and also after, as we said. משמע מדבריו, נטילת ידיים תלויה בברכת המוציא. So you see from there that according to Rambam, you only wash your hands if there's hamotzi, the blessing. So what does that mean? If there is a bread, you don't make hamotzi. What else would you make on the bread? You do mezonot, right? If it's cake, or if it's like, let's say, rice bread, right? So it could be, not rice bread, the corn bread. It could be like shakol. So it depends, right? There are all kinds of breads out there, right? So yeah. So he says, right, that only the stuff which is hamotzi, meaning what? It's one of the 5 species, right? Wheat, barley, rye, spelt, right, and oats, right? Those things. הבא בכסנין, right, or לחמניות, takot. So he says, right, all those things which we bless, we don't bless hamotzi on them. וכיוצא בהם things like this, כמו שהתברר בסימן קס"ה, like it's going to be explained in the chapter 168, הוא הדין נמי דאין טעונין נטילת ידיים, they don't need נטילת ידיים. וכן משמע נמי בדברי רבנו שמשון, it also comes out like that from רבנו שמשון, בפרק כמה דחלה, the first פרק of חלה, משנה ה', המתניתין דתחילתה עיסה וסופה סופגנין, ולפי זה איך דקבע סעודתה על פת הבא בכסנין או לחמניות צריך לברך אחריהם במוציא, נראה שצריך לנטילת ידיים, מיהו קשה בעיניי. So he says right from here you see that if a person is eating like a large amount, of cake, right, or cookies, or crackers, or all those kinds of things, right? So you do have to already, make hamotzi if you're doing a large amount. So that means that you also have to bless, you also have to wash your hands as well. That's what he's saying over here. So he says, right, kashe ben, but it's difficult, he says, in my eyes, shal lechem echad be'atzmo, pa'am yistarech netilat yadayim, pa'am lo yistarech. So what does that mean? Like one type of bread, sometimes you're going to need washing hands and sometimes not. ואפשר לא מקרה פת שמברכין עליו המוציא, אלא פת שמברכין עליו לעולם המוציא. So it says, could be that we're only talking about bread which we always bless המוציא. אפילו כשאינו קובע עליו, even if he doesn't make a wee meal out of it, אבל פת שכשאינו קובע עליו, אינו מברך המוציא. But if a person is eating something which he doesn't make hamotzi unless he eats a large amount, right? So even if he makes a meal out of it, he doesn't have to bless. He doesn't have to wash his hands. So he shouldn't say the opposite. He says, we're almost done with this. Because since he makes a meal out of it, he does bless hamotzi. Mikre pat is called bread שמבחין עליו במוציא, that we do במוציא. אף כשאינו קובע עליו צריך נטילת ידיים. So even if he doesn't have a meal, he has to do נטילת ידיים. the משמע בירושלמי, because it implies in Yerushalmi, the pat הבא בכסנין אינו צריך נטילת ידיים. That you don't need washing hands for, right, mezonot, right, for cookies and crackers and all that stuff, right, cake. כמו שכתוב בסימן זה, like we're going to write in this chapter, בסייעתא דשמיא, ואלא שמצאתי שהרשב"א, but it says I found in the Rashba, שכתב בתורת הבית, he writes in תורת הבית, this book תורת הבית, הקצר, האוכל כאחין וכיוצא בהם, he writes over that if you're eating crackers and things like that, the תענוג for pleasure, ואינו קובע סעודתו עליהם, he's not fixing his right meal on that, he's not making a meal out of it, נוטל ידו יחד, you should wash one hand, so it implies from his words that if he's making a meal out of it, you would need to wash your hands. So he said that which Rashba said, that if you're not making a seudah, you're not making a meal out of it, you have to wash only one hand. So we're going to explain that later on, he says. Okay, whatever. So anyway, we're done with this with Yosef. So we'll do a Shulchan Aruch and we'll stop there. Okay. So we'll get it now straight, all this stuff. Let's get it straight. Okay. Here we go. Oh, I'm sorry, not this one. Not this one. This one we already did. Next one. This one, yeah. Okay, so it says here, when you're eating bread, right, which the blessing is hamotzi, you have to wash your hands for that. Even though you don't know that they're dirty or impure, doesn't matter. You have to wash your hands anyway. The blessing is not נטילת ידיים. אבל לפת שאין בברכין עליו המוציא, but bread which we don't make hamotzi on it, כגון לחמניות, right? For instance, right, לחמניות, right, which is like crackers, things like this, or pat הבא בכסנין, or a cake, as we said, all kinds of stuff like that. ואינו קובע סעודתו, and he's not making a meal out of that. איתו לידיו, אפילו אינו יודע להם. I'm sorry, I didn't say it. עליהם, אין צריך נטילת. So those don't require נטילת ידיים. That's the rule, So only hamotzi requires netilat yadayim, but other types of condiments, cookies, crackers, cakes, right? Borekas, right? Whatever, right? All that stuff, right? Does not require to wash your hands. But if you are making a meal out of it, you do, right? So what is that a meal? We're going to see it later on, right? That means that you're eating the amount of 4 eggs, the volume of 4 eggs, which is about 200 grams in weight. So if you're eating that much, you do have to wash your hands because it's considered to be a meal already. So we'll talk about that in the future, Bezrat Hashem. We'll get to that, all that stuff. So anyway, thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Chazak Baruch, Laila Tov, and we'll see you, Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow. And right, I hope you guys are praying for me that I should do teshuvah. And so this way, right, I won't miss the opportunity. Okay, so Chazak Baruch, we'll see you tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem. Laila Tov.
Kavod Tov. Thank you so much.
All right, all the best. Bye.